There is a financial milestone that almost nobody talks about. It is not $100,000. It is not your first million. It is $50,000. And the reason nobody talks about it is because it does not look like anything from the outside. Nobody throws a party when they hit 50,000 in savings. Nobody posts about it. Nobody even notices. But something very real shifts at that number, something that quietly rearranges how you make decisions, how you sleep, how you negotiate, and how fast every dollar after it accumulates. Two neighbors on the same street, earning within a few $1,000s of each other. One has $47,000 tucked away, the other just crossed $52,000. On paper, the difference is $5,000. In reality, those two people are living in completely different financial universes, and neither of them fully understands why. My name is Zik, and today I am going to explain what actually happens at $50,000, why your brain treats money completely differently once you cross that line, and why most people blow right past this moment without realizing they just entered a phase of wealth building that operates on entirely different rules. Let me start with what makes $50,000 so quietly powerful, because it is not the number itself. It is what the number represents in terms of your relationship with financial emergencies. The average unexpected financial crisis in most households, a job loss, a medical event, a major car or home repair, costs somewhere between $3,000 and $15,000. The larger ones, like a layoff that lasts 4 to 6 months, can run $20,000 to $30,000 when you factor in living expenses during the gap. At $50,000, you can absorb almost any single financial emergency without it destroying your momentum, and that changes something fundamental in how your nervous system processes risk. Before $50,000, your financial life runs on a kind of background anxiety that you have probably normalized. You may not even feel it anymore because it has been there so long. It is the subtle tension when your car makes a strange sound, the tiny contraction in your chest when a bill arrives that is higher than expected, the way you hesitate before checking your account balance. That anxiety is not a personality trait. It is your brain responding accurately to a real vulnerability. You do not have enough cushion to survive a surprise, and some part of you knows it, even when you are not consciously thinking about it. At $50,000, that signal changes. Not because you decided to think positively, not because you read an affirmation, because the material reality underneath your life actually shifted. You now have enough to handle a setback without going backward. And your brain registers this, not as a thought, as a feeling, a loosening, a quiet settling of something that has been clenched for years. This is not motivational language. This is neuroscience. Studies in behavioral economics have shown that financial stress activates the same threat detection systems as physical danger. When your savings cross a threshold that your brain interprets as safe enough, your prefrontal cortex, the part responsible for long-term planning and rational decision-making, gets more bandwidth. You literally think better. You make calmer decisions. You stop reacting to money and start directing it. And this is where the acceleration begins. Let me show you the math on why $50,000 is not just a safety net, but a launch pad. Say you have been saving and investing consistently to reach $50,000, contributing $600 a month into a diversified portfolio, averaging 8% annual returns. It took you roughly 5.5 years to get here, which felt slow. There were months where your balance barely moved, months where the market dipped and your number went backward even though you kept contributing. Those years test people. They test your patience, your belief, and your consistency, and most people quit somewhere in that stretch because the math feels unrewarding. But here is what happens next. Your $50,000 is now generating roughly $4,000 a year in returns on its own. That is over $300 a month that shows up without effort. It does not sound like much, but think about what it means structurally. You are still contributing $600, the market is now adding $300 on top. Your effective savings rate just jumped by 50% without you changing a single thing about your income or your budget, and that bonus keeps growing. At $60,000, the market is giving you closer to $400 a month. At $75,000, over $500. By the time you reach $100,000, your money is generating nearly as much as your contributions. This is the compounding curve starting to bend. And $50,000 is the point where you can actually feel it bending, where the numbers on your statement start surprising you, where a quarterly check-in shows growth you did not manually create. That feeling is what keeps people in the game. Before $50,000, discipline carried you. After $50,000, momentum starts carrying you. And that is a fundamentally different experience. If this is shifting how you think about your own savings, take 2 seconds and hit the like button. It does more for the channel than you would think. Now here is the part that most financial content never addresses, and it is the reason I say $50,000 is a turning point and not just a milestone. What changes at $50,000 is not just your math, it is your option. Before this number, your financial decisions are mostly defensive. Should I take this job? Can I afford to leave that one? Should I move? Can I handle the transition cost? Every major life decision gets filtered through the question of whether you can survive the disruption. And that filter eliminates options constantly. You stay in situations longer than you should. You say yes to things you do not want. You say no to things that could change your trajectory, not because you lack ambition, but because you lack the runway to act on it. At $50,000, the filter loosens dramatically. You can take a calculated career risk because 3 to 6 months of expenses are covered. You can walk away from a toxic job because you have time to find the right next move instead of the first available one. You can invest in a certification, a relocation, a side venture, because the capital exists without going into debt. $50,000 does not just protect you from emergencies, it gives you access to a category of decisions that were previously locked behind a wall of financial insecurity. And here is the compounding effect nobody calculates. The decisions you make from a position of stability tend to generate better returns than the decisions you make from survival mode. The job you take because it is the right fit, not the desperate choice, pays more over 5 years. The investment you make with patient capital outperforms the one you make under pressure to get quick returns. The negotiation you enter knowing you can walk away yields better terms every single time. $50,000 does not just change your balance, it changes the quality of every financial decision you make for years afterward. And those decisions compound just like interest does. Let me give you a real contrast. 2 people, both 30 years old, both earning $55,000 a year. Person A has $8,000 in savings. Person B has $52,000. A job opportunity appears in another city. Better role, better trajectory, but it requires a move, a deposit on a new apartment, and potentially 2 months without income during the transition. Person A cannot take it. The math does not work. They stay where they are. 5 years later, they have progressed slowly in the same role, maybe earning $62,000. Person B takes the opportunity. The move costs them $9,000 total. They absorb it. Within 3 years, they are earning $78,000. The $50,000 cushion did not just protect person B, it unlocked a career path that earned them an additional $80,000 or more over the next decade. That is the invisible return on having a financial buffer. It does not show up on any investment statement, but it might be the highest returning asset you will ever build. So let me tell you exactly how to get to $50,000 if you are not there yet, and what to do the moment you arrive. First, know your real number, not your salary, not your gross income, your actual monthly spending. Everything that leaves your account in a typical month. Most people overestimate their income and underestimate their expenses by 20 to 30%. You cannot build toward $50,000 if you do not know what your true baseline costs are. Second, set up a separate account specifically for this milestone. Do not mix it with your checking. Do not mix it with your regular savings. This is your stability fund, your option unlocking account. Automate a contribution to it every single payday. Even $200 per paycheck builds to over $10,000 in a year. The automation matters more than the amount. Third, once you cross $20,000 in that account, start splitting new contributions. Half continues building toward $50,000. The other half goes into a low-cost index fund. This way, you are building your safety buffer and your investment portfolio simultaneously, and the invested portion starts compounding while you are still working toward the target. Fourth, when you hit $50,000, do not celebrate by spending it. Celebrate by doing the one thing that $50,000 makes possible. Make one decision you have been postponing because you could not afford the risk. Apply for that job. Start that project. Have that conversation about your role and your compensation. The point of $50,000 is not to have $50,000. The point is to use the security it provides to make better moves. And if you are finding this useful, consider subscribing. I make content like this every week designed to change the way you interact with your money at the level where it actually matters. Let me take you back to those two neighbors. Same street, same income, a $5,000 difference in savings, but one of them sleeps differently. One of them negotiates differently. One of them thinks about their career not as a thing that is happening to them, but as something they are actively steering. The difference is not visible from the outside. No one can see a financial turning point the way they can see a new car or a renovated kitchen, but the person who crossed it knows. They feel it in the absence of that low-grade anxiety, in the presence of something quieter and more powerful. Clarity, options, the ability to say no to what does not serve them and yes to what does. $50,000 does not make you rich. It does not solve every problem, but it fundamentally changes the physics of your financial life. Before it, every dollar you save is a struggle against gravity. After it, gravity starts working with you instead of against you. The math gets easier, the decisions get better. The momentum becomes self-reinforcing in a way that no amount of budgeting advice or motivational content can replicate, because it is not about what you know, it is about what you have built underneath your life. And the quiet truth is this: most people will never hit $50,000 in savings, not because they cannot, because they do not know what it unlocks, so they never prioritize it. Now, what you do with your next paycheck just became a very different kind of choice. Thanks for listening. I'll see you in the next video.